Welcome back to the Rewind That Tape YouTube channel. Today we are back with the last episode of Contenders versus Pretenders. I know it's been a while since the last time we were able to upload, but we want to make sure that the quality of videos is good enough to post, and we just haven't been hitting that mark as of late. Today we feel good about this episode to release our last Contenders versus Pretenders. Reviewing our results so far, Colorado was definitely correct being pretenders. Oregon and Penn State have been more mere question marks, and Florida State has definitely hit their mark being one of the top teams in college football currently. But we'll see with this last one. Today, we are going to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide. They have had some exciting games, especially their latest against LSU. And do they have enough to make the playoff push after their early loss against Texas? Let's rewind that tape. Alabama started the season off rough against a Texas team that they just weren't able to compete with, and then struggling against a USF team that should have been an easy win. South Florida was more concerning than Texas, but let's start off with the Texas game. Alabama's offensive issues were definitely to blame. Texas's offense was playing well against Alabama's defense, and Alabama's defense sucked. But looking at the Bama offense, I really wasn't convinced of anything, especially considering they were playing a defense that allowed plenty of points to plenty of Big 12 teams, especially as of late against Oklahoma and Kansas State. Looking on the defensive side, the biggest concern in that game was that they got torched through the air. Texas was able to put up a clinic, throwing 349 yards through the air. They were going to score at will in that game, and that's what kept Texas ahead. Against South Florida, Coach Saban decided he needed to take a look at the QB situation, and that led to horrible offense against South Florida. They were not in control of this game for most of this game, and Tyler Buchanan was not the answer that Bama was looking for. After the game, Milroe was put back in control of the offense. Nick Saban quoted his leadership as the reason, but really, after that performance, Milroe was clearly the starter. So let's take a look more at this offense. There's plenty of weapons surrounding Milroe, including Isaiah Bond and Jermaine Burton, who have been playing out of their mind lately, which has really helped the offense. From the run perspective, Jace McLean has been doing his job, but I look at the pass game as the thing that needs to be improved the most. Milroe is not the best quarterback in college football, but his receivers playing outstanding has definitely helped their offense. They've looked a lot better in their last two games against Tennessee and LSU compared to how they've looked before. And Milroe looks like the guy. He looks like the leader. He's moving the ball well. He knows when to run. He knows when to pass. I like him better. What we saw in that LSU game, but can he keep that up? I like him to run the ball and pass the ball when needed. He needs to make those decisions, and as of late, he's been making them. Their worst games on offense are against good defenses, though, and that's concerning, especially with the looming matchup versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. They struggled against Texas A&M. They struggled against Ole Miss. They struggled against Texas. Those are all teams that have probably good defenses, but they're probably going to play their best defense when they play Georgia. But if those receivers can outplay the Georgia secondary, we're looking at a different game. We'll get into that later. Let's move on to defense. Can their defense hold up against top 25 competition? The same question almost as the offense. Can they hold up when they're playing a quality opponent? They allowed 28 points against LSU, which included 478 yards of offense. This was a game that Jaden Daniels got hurt in. Imagine him for one more quarter being able to put on the clinic that he was putting on. This team might have allowed over 40 points and over 500, definitely over 500 yards of offense. That is too big of a number, especially against a good offense. Like Bama is not used to that quality on defense, and the secondary has been an issue. We talked about it during Texas. The same thing occurred during LSU. It's going to be a decent offense when they play Georgia, but we'll get into that later. Can this secondary clean it up? They're still young. It's not used to what we're seeing out of a Saban team, but it's going to have to be fixed if they want to be a serious contender in these playoffs. Alabama is used to that quality on defense, and they need that quality on defense in order to keep up with other teams. Their offensive quality isn't something like they've seen in the past. It's not Tua. It's not Jalen Hurts. It's not one of those teams that have explosive offenses that we're not able to contain. This is an offense that is more slow paced, more evened out. The quarterback is still young. The team is still young. They have to take time to get this team back to where they are offensively, and that's why they need their young defense to step up. Let's look ahead. On their upcoming schedule, they have Kentucky, Chattanooga, and Auburn. Auburn is the road game as well as Kentucky, but I look at Auburn as the game that's definitely scarier on the schedule. Playing in Jordan-Hare, playing in an Iron Bowl, it's not going to be easy. Auburn's been playing well lately. They've come up with good losses and good wins as of late, and they've been messing with higher up teams. Auburn's not a team that I would ever discount, especially in a rivalry game. We've seen it already. Oklahoma losing in Bedlam this week. We've seen it happen in the past. Iron Bowls can get crazy, and this year is going to be no different. Bama has to focus on that game when looking ahead. Looking at those 3 games overall, though, should be able to move through them. Alabama's playing at a high level right now, especially on offense, where they should be able to move through all 3 of those teams. Now, that sets up the looming matchup against Georgia in the SEC championship, which is probably going to be the most highly anticipated matchup of the year. The winner of that game, it's like a quarterfinal. The winner will play in the college football playoff. Now, looking at that game, we've mentioned it, we've foreshadowed it a bunch of times already during this episode. Can the Bama offense play against the toughest defense that they will play against all season? Georgia is going to be the toughest defense they've played all year. And I'm emphasizing that because that is the most important matchup in this game. I am less worried about that defense playing against a Georgia offense, which I don't believe is one of the best in college football. They might have been playing at a high level throughout parts of the season, but this Georgia team is not the same quality that we are used to seeing the last 2 years when they've been national champions. This is a Georgia offense that is still young. They're struggling. They're learning just as much as the Alabama defense. So that's not the matchup. The matchup is whether Milroe can score on Kirby Smart's defense, and that is going to be the struggle in this game. And I really do believe Bama will struggle offensively. They are going to have to figure it out later in this game. They will struggle in that first half. The positive for Bama is that the Georgia offense is probably going to look something similar in that first half. It should be pretty sloppy. I expect the second half, one of these teams is going to come up, but once again, that favors Bama having a chance to move on, to move forward. That favors Bama. Assuming they're able to get through that matchup with Georgia, they should be into the playoffs. And that's pretty impressive of a year from Bama fans. They should be very proud of that if they are able to win the SEC and make it into the playoffs as a one-loss team. And that leaves it up to anything can happen. It's the postseason. We've seen crazy things happen in the college football playoff. We've seen teams get blown out. We've seen teams that shouldn't win. Anything can happen in the college football playoff, and especially with how this year has gone, there's no team that looks like an outstanding candidate to win a national championship. It really does seem like any team can do it with inside that top 10. It's going to be a every day, every week type of thing, and Bama should get through it if they can knock down Georgia. And they've been playing through plenty of adversity, especially at that point in the season, knocking off what's probably going to be the number 1 team in the nation. That would be the cherry on top for Alabama fans. And I keep saying that because what else could you have expected coming out of that USF game? Bama will look to do so, and I do believe that they have a chance, which is why they are going to be contenders in this episode. I don't think they're national championship quality, but with the opponents that they're playing and the quality of the rest of college football this year, anything can happen. And they are playoff contenders because all they need to do is win one game, that game against Georgia. And if they do, they're playoff contenders, which makes them contenders. If Milroe can take control of games, if he can learn in these last 3 games, if he learned from that LSU game, this is a team that's going to be very, very dangerous. They have some problems on defense, but I really don't think that's nothing Nick Saban can figure out. I really do believe in that defense. It's up to Milroe. And the CFP, anything can happen. It's now up to the college football gods to see if the Tide will make their way into the top 4. We'll see what happens. For now, that's all we got. Alabama is a contender. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out our website and all of our other videos on YouTube, and we'll see you guys on the next one.